Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tree Actions, the Human Forestry Podcast. And with me, as always, is my trusty counterpart, Tony. How you doing, Tony?
Doing well. Good day, everyone.
And we have a special guest joining us all the way from Vancouver. But you may notice that by his accent that he may not have originated there. But I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Tiger Devine. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's been a minute, like we were talking earlier before we all chatted. So I was telling Nance that we got Tiger on the show this morning. She's like, "Oh man, Tiger's always great to talk to. It's going to be a good one," and I agree.
Oh, she's very kind.
No, it's going to be good. So, well, we start the show traditionally with one question, and it's what gets us rolling. And that question is, if you would share with us and our guests the first time that you recall feeling a connection to a tree or trees.
Yeah, that one's actually very topical, I suppose, at the moment. My mother was in national parks just before I was born, and she's very much a conservationist and a lover of all things natural. And we had just moved to Tasmania, which is the state just below mainland Australia, and we were walking around the botanical gardens there in Hobart, and it's one of the earliest memories that I have at about 3 or 4, and it's the oak leaves in fall, and like the texture and the crunch and the scent. You know, being Hobart, it was probably had just finished raining. It was just about to start raining, and yeah, so being a bit foggy, and my mum sort of had this story about we were going to land in a place that the dragon's breath was there, and this was this whole mythology that she'd sort of built.
Wow.
And, Welsh heritage, so there's a little bit of a story behind that. But there's a fog rolling in, and my mum tells the story way better. But I just remember like the feeling and the scent and everything at that point in time. You know, the cool temperature, the distinct smell of like leaves, like fresh fallen leaves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that was I suppose that was my first point when I realized I actually really liked these green things. And yeah, my mum was actually the first person to get me in a tree and teach me how to climb a tree. You know,
Wow.
you can't step on that branch, Tiger, it might break. Use your hand to get up here like that. And it was probably around about that time, within a couple of weeks, that she tossed me into my first tree. So
Wow. So that's just a beautiful story, especially with your mom, being so instrumental in your memory of that. What and you said a dragon story, a dragon's breath?
yeah, so we had left my father, who was not really a great individual, probably still is not, and we were traveling down the coast. I'm originally from Byron Bay, just below the Gold Coast, and we were on a mission to find where the dragon's breath was because that would be the place that we would settle and be safe. And I think that more sort of accumulated to meeting my stepdad and creating a life as a nuclear family with my sister and everything. But yeah, I think also she's a big fan of Puff the Magic Dragon as well. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it comes in from a few different points, and she's quite the poet as well. So
So did she tell you a story about a dragon, or was it just you were searching for the dragon's breath?
Search. Well, I think the the whimsy of parenting is like, why is it foggy, mum? Oh, there's a dragon under the bridge. Those,
Ah.
those sort of things. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and of course, as a child, like you just take it all in and remember everything very totally. Especially if it's from your parents. Well, almost anybody really that could captivate you, right? You can be what a great time of life to because the fantasy is just right there. You don't even doubt it. It's like, wow, dragon's breath. That's cool. Fog being that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's really cool to relive that sort of stuff as a parent too. I've got a 9-year-old daughter, and she's still very much into fairies and you know magic and everything. It's really amazing. It reminds you what's truly important in life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder what stories you would share with her. Do you play off like use the stories or share the stories your mom shared with you, or do you elaborate or?
Well, it was actually really cool. We had the opportunity to bring her over for a couple of months and spend some time with us, and sort of
Oh,
more
cool.
importantly with Acacia, my daughter. And yeah, mum just was like, excellent. I have a new victim to tell all my stories to. So yeah, she laid it on pretty thick, and Acacia loves all the stories of me as a little boy and growing up, and all the adventures we got up to, and it seems so disconnected. Like, this is my dad. This is an adult. Like, he's a serious person and has a business and all this sort of stuff, and then like, he was doing what when he was this age? And I have a few little mementos from when I was in school, and I wrote this little book as maybe a school project or something, and the on the front it's called I can't remember what it's called, but there's a speech bubble, and then it says "Shut up, Nick" on it. And she's like, I can't believe that you would say "Shut up, Dad. I thought you were such a polite little boy."
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, no, it's very cool.
And is
Very
is
much
it
enjoy
a
it.
is it a story or is it a?
Yeah, I know. She's got it in her room somewhere. I should try and find it, but uh, it's just a silly sort of made up story from the mind of like a 7 or 8 year old kid. So
Yeah, yeah.
mhm.
Well, of course, uh, handwritten.
Yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
colored with my exceptional artistry skills. So
Well, sure. Which is one of the things that's quite interesting that I think we're maybe approaching a time when those of us that know how to write by hand and form words and sentences are may not be like there could be already a generation that may not be find that easy to do.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, arguably, I had a tough time to begin with, but at least I was taught how to do it. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. I was, and I just recently had to write a little speech for a wedding for DJ's wedding, and I just wrote it out right when I gave it to him afterwards and stuff. But Nance was comment. Nance couldn't. She was having a hard time, so she just typed hers and printed it right? Because she can type easier than she can write. I can't quite do that. Tony,
yeah,
do you go
oh,
ahead?
sorry.
That's
Yeah, I
okay.
think if like any handwriting practice I did in elementary school or it was totally wasted, they should have just taught me to type at this point. Like I can't. Like it would have been a far more useful skill for me. Plus, being pretty dyslexic, half the time I got to cross stuff out because I really meant that to be a P, but now it's a B, and I scribble it out, and then it's just all crazy.
Oh, I never knew that you had partial dyslexia, or is it just
Oh
late?
yeah.
Really? Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not. I think as I've gotten older, maybe I've adapted. But I still like. I was actually just doing it the other day. I was labeling parts. I was taking some frames apart, and I'm trying to write the letter P and the word letter B just kept coming out. I'm like, stop it. And I'm writing this in a Sharpie, crossing it out. Like, come on, stop.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, I very much have the same issue, and I kind of grew out of it as I got older. But when I'm stressed, it
Hmm.
sort of comes back with a vengeance. So,
Ah,
like numbers, letters, the whole 9 yards. But one thing that I learned was with dyslexia, it actually becomes easier to speed read
Hmm.
because your recognition and processing becomes that much better when you're focusing on is that a P or is it a B, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of a blessing in disguise, I feel. But having said that, it's never been super acute. So
Right. Yeah, I'm
well,
with you there,
you,
Tiger. I've never. It's been an obstacle to me occasionally, but I think I've had more, probably a few more benefits because, like I said, I can read really fast. The other thing is too is I think it gives me sometimes a unique perspective because I see things backwards.
yeah,
Quite honestly, I just do. You know, where it gets cumbersome sometimes is like my wife will be navigating, she'll say make a right, and I'll turn left, and she goes, I said right. I said I turned. Well, no, I didn't. Right. So those kind of things. But yeah, I don't.
wow.
But that's again, I don't want to. If somebody's listening and has severe dyslexia, I don't want to belittle it. I'm not. I'm not. I haven't been terrible, but it has been a challenge. And actually, like I say, it made because of it when I was younger, I formed a reading habit, which I love to this day. Right, and I credit that to being a dyslexic student. Right, it was I was good at reading, so I did a lot of it.
same.
Well, isn't it interesting how so often, at least I find it interesting, and see what you guys think about this, but how the things that we find most challenging or that really, I guess you could frame it in a negative sense or a bad sense, like, oh, I got to overcome this challenge or I have this like dyslexia or whatever it might be, but yet so often later, you hear people refer to that as the greatest asset or benefit or teaching tool that actually improved them, right? Or they're glad to have had that challenge because it's just and then it makes you wonder, is it even a challenge? Because it made you a better reader, made you read books more, like, and it applies to so many things in our lives. I find. What do you think?
Pressure makes diamonds, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm trying these days not to think of things that suck as that they're bad. Like trying not to frame them in a negative sense, but rather it's just part of it. You're not, and and not even say the benefit that's going to come from this hardship. It's just my life is going to be. This is part of my life. It's part of what I have to go through to be who I'm going to be. The tree, you don't hear a tree, you got a young tree out there and an old dead tree falls and, strips half the branches off one side. That's going to change that tree's future. And, but they don't, well, I'd be like this tree if that hadn't happened. Like it just doesn't happen in nature, right? And then you have these really weird growing trees with weird wounds on them and crooks and bent trunks that came from some type of you know incident that occurred, right? And I think it's so much like our lives.
I love the analogy and use it like all the time when talking about people and life and everything. Trees don't have the benefit of getting up and walking away. They have to take everything full force right in the face.
Yeah.
And I love the stories that trees tell by all the wounds and all the crooked branches and bends and twists and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. It's really amazing, and the resilience that trees show is something to aspire to as a human being. And I really love that analogy a lot. The compartmentalization component
Mm.
as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
hollow trunks, and how they can become equally as strong or stronger than a solid wood tree.
Yep.
It's full of a lot of parallels there. It's great.
Well, and I don't think it's coincidental. I think that there is in nature, trees, in all that, there is lessons for life that if we take the time to observe them are really there to help us, and And one of my favorite ones in trees, you mentioned compartmentalization. I think wound wood is incredible analogy, right? Like it doesn't replace the lost parts. It puts new wood in new places, and it's stronger than regular wood. And then once the wound is no longer felt as a defect, it goes back to producing normal wood, like,
Mm.
or if you call it that, it just, what a neat analogy, like, and as long as it has the energy, right? As long
Yeah.
as it has the energy to keep doing that. So you need to keep, the energy flow going and connected to the sun.
That was one of the big things I remember from you. I think it was the appraisal course that you taught in New West there.
Yeah.
And we were looking at a tree and we are evaluating it for, like, a monetary cost and whatever else. And you went straight to looking for adaptive behavior and growth and everything. And you're like, look, there's strong striations on this tree, like really great growth cracks. So this tree is producing, it's growing. So we know this tree is actually moving forwards. It's not,
Yeah.
in a state of stasis or, like, declining or anything. We've established that this tree is growing. And it's one of the things that I use all the time when I'm assessing a tree. Let's just determine if this tree is trying to do something about its wounds, if
Yep.
it's growing, if it's producing, or is it the opposite? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I want to thank you for that one. I use that all the time, and not only for tree assessment, but in life. Is this person trying to
Yeah.
put on a new growth ring, or are they fighting it with everything they got?
Yep. Yep. No, I totally agree. And that's awesome. Well, thank you for that. And I think, for me, a lot of that goes to probably Shigo. Well, a lot of teachers, but Shigo was always big on that. Like he always would talk, the that was the whole thing with the shigometer, right? Because the shigometer measured resistance, which was tied to the more stored energy or sapwood in the tree, the more resistive it would be, or less resistive it would be. I'm saying I can't remember the science of it exactly, but like wood with incipient decay and certainly heartwood that's dried or decayed has less. I think it's less conductive.
Mm.
So the more conductivity there was through the probes, the more energy was in the tree, and you get an idea of, you know, so you could confirm your striation assessments with actual amount of stored energy or sapwood, living wood. What do you call it? Symplast.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Symplast is sapwood, and apoplast is hardwood or non-living wood.
Mm-hmm.
Some living cells, symplast; non-living cells, apoplast. But he that's one device that never. I know there's a few around kicking around in the. I never did get my hands on one. I hinted strongly to try to get one from him, but I never did get one. I don't even know. Have you ever seen one?
Never. No, no. I'm actually only just hearing about it now. It sounds like similar to like a resistograph, but measuring in less of the resistance and more of the conductivity. So,
Yeah.
which would be interesting to do like a side by side comparison, because if you have, like as you say, incipient decay, like depending on where the tree's at and what it's producing, the amount of decay maybe is not as much of a problem.
Right.
So. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was he when I asked, like, it just never really took off, and he also was quick to say that he had absolutely nothing to do with the naming of it. He said I was working on it, and he said there was a bunch of colleagues getting together, and I was showing them the device, and they said, "Oh, look, it's Shigo's meter." And ever since it was called the Shigometer, but he had nothing to do with naming. He said, I didn't want to name it after myself. He said, it just got stuck there. So the Shigometer.
It's a pretty badass name, isn't it?
It is. And all it was two probes. They were like sharp points that you just pushed through. You put them in a striation and you pushed them through into the xylem, like through the phloem, and you got into good wood, and you do 2 points, and and it would just give you this reading on, and you tested it with salt water. So you would put it in salt water to make sure it was, and then you'd get a reading, and you put it in regular water and you'd get a lower reading because salt water is more conductive. And that's how you determine that the flow was accurate. And then you could go to your trees and you'd compare it to other trees. And he wanted something that was non-invasive. And you know what he said? I asked him, I said, well, why didn't you? He said the tree industry wasn't ready for it. He said you had to know too much about biology in order to actually understand it. Nobody wanted to learn it.
Oh man, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that one, it's a real shame, and I think it largely comes down to the teachers. You know, going back to my mum, which was my first teacher, is like
Yeah.
bringing back the whimsy, bringing back the story, and I think that's where the true learning, especially for arborists, where a bunch of us are super neurospicy, you know? You got to make things interesting, otherwise we're gonna be checking out.
Yeah. Well, it's the old adage of stories. That stories are the oldest form of training and education, right? And they still are the most powerful, right? They really are. Like, if you think of things you remember, it's so often from a story, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like I just shared with you there, my story about you there, and it's something that I use literally every day. So yeah,
Well, they say the world's greatest teachers, it was the only medium they used was storytelling. Tony, you got to have something there with storytelling. I mean,
Oh yeah, I got all kinds. I could that a whole other thing, but I could see Shigo's reluctance, right? Because really, in the end, only an instrument like that can only give you numbers, right? If you can't interpret the numbers into the biology aspect of it, it doesn't. You can. It's like Mark Twain's quote: "Three types of liars. There's liars, damn liars, and statisticians." Right? You can make the numbers say anything you want, right? But then I could see, just having known Dr. Shigo, I didn't know him as well as you did, but my exposure to him, it's like the numbers weren't important. It was the story the tree's trying to tell you, right? Like, so you look at striations, you're like, okay, I'm estimating that maybe this is good. And now I have a number to back that up, right? It does, just the number itself doesn't do anything for you. So I can see where you have to connect it, right? You have to be able to tell the story of the tree. And the only way to do that is to understand the biology of the tree. If you only understand the numbers, it's just like having the index of a book with no book, right? Like, oh, I got to go to page 107. Oh, shit. I don't have page 107. All right? Like it's the same thing.
or I can't read it. I can't read it.
I
or
can't read it. Or I open it up and it's like, which reminds me of another story. I remember this when I first went to college. I'm a later student, right? So I'm in my mid 20s, and this is the early 90s. So the internet is just starting to like get going, right? First email address I ever had was in college. But I remember sitting there in a computer lab at Penn State University, and I'm working away on something, I don't know, whatever. And there's a student over to me, and they're like, ah, and they just start cussing. I'm like, what? And they're like, well, I was looking this up, and I found this great research thing, and I opened up the website, and it's all in Spanish. I can't read that. Like, well, welcome to the internet, right? Like, you know, like, you have all this information, but you still have to be able to know how to use it, right?
Well, and now everything translates as well.
Well, that is true. We've changed that part of it for good and evil, maybe.
I remember specifically being taught how to use search engines, and it's like this doesn't seem right. Isn't the whole concept of a search engine so that I type in what I want to look for and then it shows me what it is? And I'm like revisiting that heavily now with AI, because it's like you actually have to know how to present what it is that you want in order for it to work properly.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like mind-boggling. Like, how have we not got to the stage now where it's like, okay, I'm hungry. This is the food that I like. Show me where there's food in the nearby area that maybe meets one of those standards. It's like, it's interesting, isn't it? But
Yeah, or it sends you a message that it's this time, and usually at this time on this day you order this, or you like this, or you want to go for this. So maybe here's some options of places you might want to check out. It's like what? Yeah, I'm curious if there's a story that you remember, Tiger, that was one of your favorites or most memorable that your mother maybe shared more than once, or just that sticks out in you. You mentioned the dragon's breath, but I love mama stories.
well, Mum's got loads of them, loads and loads and loads of them. We come from a big line of storytellers. So from my mum's side of the family, uh, there was lots of ministers, and that's what ministers do is they get up and they tell stories and they engage, right? So the first story that comes to mind is the story of when I was a very small baby, and I was like asleep in my crib, and my mum was in the next room and heard this like big thump. So obviously, the first thing she goes to do is go and check on the baby, and comes in, and massive carpet python has fallen from the ceiling
Oh,
into my crib. And carpet pythons are harmless, and they're very very common where I'm from, and they often live in the ceilings of homes, and often they're really useful getting rid of like rats and that sort of thing.
yeah.
But when one lands in your crib, you're not thinking about the usefulness of the animal. You're thinking about the fact that you've got a massive snake in your kid's bed, right? So she grabs this snake and tosses it out the window, runs outside with a kitchen knife, and goes and sashimis this snake all the way up into like little coins. And yeah, she retold that story when she revisited not so long ago to Acacia, and Acacia's like, "There was a snake in your bed. Where are you from? What kind of a strange place is this Australia? You know what I mean?" So
Yeah, wow. That is a wild and like you wouldn't be perceived you were big enough that it wouldn't be a big snack for a snake like that, even though they eat rodents. Like you're
I was a big baby. I would be surprised if even carpet python could have eaten me for lunch. But yeah, I was a very large baby. I think I came out almost at 9 pound. So
a carpet
yeah,
python.
I'm not sure it would have been able to eat me. But
So are they how big are they? You said massive.
oh yeah, they can get huge. I think every time Mum tells this story, it's kind of like the fishing stories. The snake gets bigger and bigger, but it wouldn't be uncommon to see one that's 6 foot long and
Wow.
couple inches thick. Yeah.
How about you, Tony? Is there childhood stories that sticks out for you?
Nah, not really. I got too many memories before I was 8, so I
Okay.
don't have nothing.
Nothing. You know, one that for whatever reason, and I don't know if it would have been read to me or something, but that always sticks out in my mind is the troll under the bridge, the Billy Goat Gruff.
Hmm.
You remember that story?
Yeah.
And in yeah, I always, yeah, because he's scared to cross over the bridge by himself, right? The little goat, because he's always go with his mom and dad, and then he has to go over alone, and then he meets the troll. I don't even remember it all exactly, but that always has been a. I got to look up that story. Maybe somebody, maybe someone will remember it. They can. So, how did your journey from climbing in Hobart as a young lad evolve into actually being a tree guy?
Yeah. I mean, it's. I suppose it's a similar story to a lot of folks out there. I was in high school, and I'd bounced around quite a few schools. Like my stepdad, or my father, I call him, is a doctor. So we traveled all around Oz for him to do internships and get new qualifications, and worked a lot rurally and whatever else. And as a result, I sort of was fairly disconnected going into all these schools. And it honestly was probably really struggling with life in general because I didn't have that many friends, and my name was Tiger. I got a browner complexion, and some of these areas that was maybe not ideal. And I didn't play a lot of sport. Um, in fact, I was the only guy in a sewing class and a cooking class, and I played chess. So I wasn't exactly like knocking the doors down on a popularity contest. And so I was in my final years of high school, and we just moved back to our home region. And I know that I'm smart enough that I could probably do whatever else I put my mind to, but I had no interest. I was a massive procrastinator, and I was just like, where do I fit in this world? And having a dad that is exceedingly intelligent, and like, okay, I'm comparing myself to this man as I'm growing into a man. Like, where
Mm.
do I get into some sort of specialty? Do I do this? Do I do that? So I was feeling very lost in the world, and it was around about that time that I really started to enjoy quantum mechanics and like thinking about the universe and space, because it made me feel small and insignificant, and that made me feel quite comfortable.
Huh.
And I was dating this girl, my first real girlfriend in high school, and I went over to her house and started talking to her stepdad, and really liked him. Super interesting guy, and he was my first real mentor outside of my family.
Okay.
And he'd done everything. He'd done everything. Like, he was a martial arts expert. He was a surfer. He shaped surfboards. Um, just you name it, he'd done it. And he was now trying on tree services as the next career path at 35 or whatever it was he was at the time. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty interesting." And he's like, "Yeah, I bought myself a truck and chipper. I bought myself like a business listing, and I'm just gonna see how it goes." So we sort of start to, you know, get this little relationship going. He's teaching me how to work on a car. He's teaching me, what it means to be a man, and what it means to be a gentleman. And one day, like, I'm staying over at the house, and he says, "Look, I know it's a lot to ask, but the guy that I had lined up to help me tomorrow is not coming in. Would you come in?" And I think I'm in my last school break for my final year or something like that. I'm like, "Sure, I really like you. Let's go and check this out." I was mowing lawns and probably doing a whole bunch of stuff I shouldn't have been doing. So I was like, I'll come and do that. And we roll into this macadamia plantation. Like, where I'm from is like one of the biggest macadamia producing regions in the world.
Wow.
And like the machines have gone down, and like the trim saws have just like trimmed all the channels, and there's dead, serrated macadamia leaves and branches on the floor. And we just went around with a tractor and this chipper and like chipped up all these branches in 40-degree heat. And it literally, it looked like someone had attacked me with bread knives down my forearms. Just like bleeding and hot and miserable. And at the end of the day, boss man's like, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Well, that sucked. Like, this is like this is the worst job ever. I don't want to have anything to do with tree services. And he's like, well, you know, buddy boy can't come in tomorrow as well. Can you just give me like one more day, like one more day? And by this stage, he'd done a lot of favors for me and was like a very kind man, and well, still is a very kind man. Shout out to Chris Eddy, what a legend. And I so basically, he's like, give me one more day. And I'm like, ah, really, dude? Okay. All right. And so anyway, we're driving in the truck, and I like still remember this like very distinctly. We're driving up this driveway of like a country manor, like a farm plot with this sort of house on the top of a plateau with trees all around it. And it must have been fall because there was a fog, sort of like a light fog rolling in. And we're coming up this gravel driveway, and I see a climber in a eucalypt make a transfer from one tree to the next, like a big sort of, your typical Tarzan swing,
Yeah.
and then grab a hold of the stem and put his lanyard on and just sit there and take a look around. And I was like, it's like, hang on, this is what tree services is about. This is what being an arb's all about, is climbing trees. Like, sign me up. This is this is where I was supposed to be, and it was a major light bulb moment for me. It was very, very pivotal because it was like all the blocks kind of settled and organized in a perfect Tetris,
Yeah.
block out situation. And excuse me. And that's where the love affair began, and that was at the tender age of 18.
Yeah.
And I sort of had the opportunity a couple of months in. Boss man's like, I'm going to college and I'm getting my like trade certificate for arboriculture. You can either sit at home on the couch smoking weed, or you can come and do school on a Friday, 4 days of work, 1 day of college. And so the climber that was working with us, Joe and Chris, were both going. So I was like, I'll come. And I did my certificate three. And at that point in time, and I think maybe even up until very recently, I was the youngest ever graduate out of that program in Wollongbar. So it, I find myself to be exceedingly lucky. All the people that I've met, that they've kind of stumbled into it later on in life, and I was right at this point of flux of like not knowing what I was going to do. Was I going to go to university? Was I going to,
Yeah.
what was I going to do? And then it just like landed in my lap, like super neatly. And as a result, I kind of find myself maybe 10 years younger than most people with my level of experience.
Yeah.
So I tend to find myself gravitating to men in their 50s and 60s because we have a similar, career length and career
Yeah.
experience, which is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
of a trip.
Yeah. That's wild. It's funny how I think a lot of people, and I certainly can relate to, moments in time where you just, like you said, the Tetris blocks just align. It's like, whoa, it just, I don't know, feels right or whatever, and I hope everyone experiences that at least once in their life, and I've experienced more than once on different aspects and different occasions. But you hope love is like that at least once in your life or something as well, right? But what's common, interesting to me to it is when people describe it, it's not. It's just you just know. When you were saying that, it reminded me of Wenda Lee when she was on the show, and she had to climb up in this tree, and she was like, "This is it." It just she's she got to where she needed to go, and she just looked around, and she was like, she just knew this was what she was going to do, and it's such a cool. I know maybe not everyone experiences that. Maybe not everyone gets to be blessed with that experience, but it's such a cool feeling. And then to have it last, like how many years ago was that?
2003, 2004. So yeah, it's a while ago now.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because trees have kind of been my arrow in my entire life. They've taken me across the world and given me direction, literally at every pivotal point in my life. So yeah, it's a huge gift that I feel extremely grateful for.
Yeah, that's an interesting story as well. Like, so because you're in a pretty nice place with nice trees, and there's a lot of people from Canada, let's say, that would love to go climb trees and do work where you're from, and yet you came to do work here. So, what was the impetus to for your travel?
Well, so the the girlfriend whose stepfather got me into tree work, and I had a very explosive separation, should we say? And I was very fortunate to work with a group out of Sydney. Like we'd migrated down to Sydney so that she could go to university, and I landed with this sort of motley crew of arbs, fairly progressive company at the time, but not the same sort of caliber as what I had sort of come into. You know, with people that were really, really concerned about education, really concerned about proper arb work, and then
Yeah.
come into a more of a cowboy situation.
Yeah.
But they had some really good operators there, and they also had a couple of what you would call like fly-ins. So Craig, the business owner, had connections throughout the world. He was a Kiwi and quite a phenomenal arborist himself. He still is. And so anyway, we had a couple of internationals come in and sort of work with us for a little while. So I was like, oh wow, this is how you do it over there, and tree climbing competitions. What's a tree climbing competition? I didn't realize this was a sport. And yeah, so anyway, I'd met Scott Forrest working for this company, and was again, it was a very much an aha moment. Like watching Scott move around in a tree, I was like, whoa. I,
Yeah.
I didn't realize you could move in a tree like that. Like, have you got like sticky hands or something? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So Scott would come in at least once a year and crash on my couch for a month or two at a time. And he kind of became my next sort of mentor. And I was like living vicariously through him, like hearing stories of, working in Austin, Texas, and Norway, and Sweden, and the UK, and like all these places. And he'd just continuously do this like
Yeah. Yeah.
globe trotting journey. And I was like, wow, you're like the coolest guy ever. And you're like the best tree climber I've ever seen in my life. So you're practically like God right now. And so I busted up with this girlfriend, and he's like, dude, it's time. It's time for you to go. It's time for you to learn more about yourself. It's time for you to learn more about your craft. You got to travel. Like I'm a way better arborist because instead of having one country, one set of trees, one set of instructors, I've got dozens and dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
And I think that was truly, you know, Scott's gift is that he was very diverse in how he approached anything. Still does. And so anyway, I was like, all right, I'm packing my bags, I'm selling my truck, I'm leaving. And I went to England and worked with a very interesting group, City Suburban Tree Surgeons, one of the biggest tree firms in London. and I met like tons and tons and tons of internationals there. Dale Thomas from Kiwi Climbers. Oh, who else? Like tons of people that are sort of well known in the industry. Mike Bird, Mike Ramsden, Calvert Scott, like tons and tons of people. And yeah, I met a Canadian woman at that point, and sort of fell in love with her. And she's like, "Well, I'm on my gap year for university. I'm going to go home." And I was like, "Well, I've always wanted to go to Canada, and I've really enjoyed my time in London. Like, I climbed in Hyde Park, Primrose Hill. I I've climbed what's it, the Thomas that the ash tree over the very first phone box in England. You know, like I felt as though I'd done my time there and had a ton of experiences. So I was like, I want to go see bears. I want to go and do some skiing and do all that sort of cool stuff. So I landed in Vancouver, and about a year later, she promptly dumped me. And I was like, well, you know what? I kind of like this place. It kind of feels like home to me. So I made the choice to stay. You know, I love to fish. I love to climb mountains. I love to climb big trees. And Vancouver for me was kind of like the mecca. It's like I'm in the center of all of these activities that I love to do. And that was 15 odd years ago now. So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, fishing and trees and mountains. You definitely it's one of the main, especially Vancouver, right? It's literally right there. You can see the ski hill, and it, in the fall there's snow up there, but it's not. You can go fishing. You go skiing, fishing, and climbing in one day, and you could climb a tree and a mountain.
Yeah, and I haven't even scratched the surface on mountain bike riding. I've got tons of friends that are mad mountain bikers. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great spot to live, and I'd had interactions with folks in Oz, like Tom Greenwood and Scott Sharp and a few other folks that had climbed big trees, and I was really fortunate enough to go along with one trek with them and climb a Regnans when I was still quite young. I would have been like maybe 22, 23. And again, that was a massive aha moment for me. Like if you feel as though climbing a tree is like a very ethereal, connected to the planet sort of activity, then climbing old growth is like that on steroids.
Yeah.
So uh, coming here and having access to so many giant trees was kind of like, you know, a kid in a candy shop. So I kind of parallel to my tree service endeavors. I was going out and just trying to find as many big trees as I could, measure them, and then get that real hit of like, you know, give me those leaves, you know, give me those needles. I'm gonna suck this experience out of this. And that was around about the time I got connected with Luce,
Oh yeah.
and he really helped me refine my love for big tree climbing, and more importantly for the big tree experience rather than like a trophy to bag, you know.
Right. Right. Right.
And there's a good story about James, if you don't mind me sharing.
Oh, by all means.
So we decided that we were going to try and pull a whole bunch of big tree people into the same place and film something. And you know, being friends with Brian and Will
Yeah.
from what was the name of their group again? I'm having a mind blank.
Ascending the Giants.
Yeah, and we're like, well, maybe we should be like a Canadian sort of chapter. Maybe we should sort of get together and go and climb some big trees and sort of spread the word about old growth and what's happening in BC with logging and that sort of thing. So we'd found this grove in Lynn Valley, and we're like, okay, everyone meet here. We're going to climb these three trees. We're going to measure them. We're going to document them. We're going to put a spin on this where it's not like glorifying ourselves, it's glorifying the natural beauty of these wondrous old trees. And we got all set up, and I was going to climb this one tree, the Crisby Creek Giant, and it's on like a maybe a 15-degree lean, like right out of the side of the mountain. And James is like, "You sure you've got this?" And I'm like, "Oh, James, like I've climbed all these big trees. I'm fine. I'll get up there and get it going." He's like, "Well, if you don't mind, I'll like come with you, and you get a line set, and I'll follow up behind you, and we'll sort of make our way up together." And it was like 8 hours of brutal slog, like trying to get, 20, 25-foot branch gaps on the underside of the tree, trying to throw a rope and
Yeah.
spiraling my way around this angled tree. And we finally got to the top, because it took us like 4 hours to try and get a line in the tree. The first branch was 120 odd feet in the air.
Yeah.
And we got there and we're looking at the sunset, and James is like, "How'd you enjoy that?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty knackered, James. That was really hard. I'm not gonna lie." And and he's like, "You know what your biggest problem was that whole time that you were doing this?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "You didn't stop. You didn't stop to enjoy the situation. You didn't stop to appreciate. You didn't look at the view. You didn't just like take a moment to take a breath." And as the sun's setting there, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to undo my spider's web of ropes that are wrapped all the way around this stem. I'm like, you're right. Like, I totally missed the whole concept of what we were trying to do here. I was just like focused
Yeah.
on getting a tape in this tree, measuring it, and getting the data. I wasn't enjoying the fact that, I had my good friend in the tree with me. I was in a beautiful place, like the views were incredible. And I've kind of taken that with me throughout the rest of my career, is to like stop and enjoy, be mindful, be present. And not only is it like a great practice to do as a human being, but it's like also almost like a risk assessment, right? You
Yeah.
know, is this is everything going to plan? Should I be doing something different? Should I be pivoting? And yeah, the concept of stopping and slowing and breathing, like he really instilled in me. Not only that, it's like you could have done that way faster if you just done it like this. I'm like, you just watch me battle my way all the way through that. He's like, yeah, it wouldn't be that good of a lesson if I had told you how to do it straight away.
Yeah. James was an example of that, of to many people and to myself as well, of taking like remembering the passion, remembering the love, right, and not letting objective get in the way of that, but rather being part of it, right, making sure that it's part of it. And it made me think of the shigometer and shigo, getting back to that. Like, it wasn't so much like people. Why do people not want to understand tree biology? And they don't want, it's because I think it comes down to passion as well. Like, some people do things, and I mean, I'm not slighting anyone. Like, we get in situations where it's a job and you're doing what you're doing, and you don't have that passion for it. You don't have that. This is what I want to do. Wow, that's nothing. But if you have that, and you need to remember that or keep that in mind, right? How you got into this, and not forget where. I think if you get caught up in commerce or money or life, and you let that get in the way of, like, progress, get in the way of passion,
Hmm.
And it's not that you can have one without the other necessarily, but there's a blending of it, right? And if all you're doing is looking at the numbers and you're not looking at the biology, if all you're doing is looking at the measuring tape, you're not looking at the climb or where you actually are, like, holy moly, here I am on this cool tree. It's not, maybe not something necessarily comes naturally, and it's something that we need to mentor and keep in mind to others, to take time.
Yeah, yeah, which is something I've been revisiting in the last couple of years because I've been working really, really hard. Trying to get my business to a place where I want it to be, and thankfully, we were talking about our better halves before. I've had a lot of support and a lot of direction from Meg, and thinking about what I am truly passionate about, what I'm truly like here for, and it's not to pay mortgages or pay payroll or anything like that. It's to lean into a gift that I was given of understanding what it is that I wanted to do at such an early age, and try and bring the fun back into my life. Try and bring the fun back into tree work and how I experience that. So I've been really trying hard to focus on that, but it's the time of my life. I just turned 40, and I got a young kid and mortgage and all that sort of stuff. It's really easy to get caught up in that tangled web of ropes that are strapped around the situation, rather than to view life and the world and your experience as a whole and go, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I'm in Vancouver, I'm on a podcast with Tony and Dwayne right now. Like, being appreciative of those things is, it sounds very simple, but it takes a lot of freaking practice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like anything, you can develop it, right? You can learn to develop it and shift that. And I think that's something that I also learned from James too. Like, and he was, I knew him later in his career, and then into even after he retired, and he continued to stay involved. But there was always that aspect, the a spiritual type of aura that came with him, right? That I always appreciated, and in fact, right through to his passing. I have said many times, like, James taught me a lot of stuff, but I never had someone teach me how to pass away or how to die, and I think he actually taught me a lot about that too, a lot about that in the way that he chose to do that.
Well, yeah, 100%. And I mean, like, to bring back the analogy about trees as well, like, I often think about James as a tree, and I think when I had like just got to know him, I was like, this guy's the wizard of the Pacific Northwest. Like, he's just like so wise, and so much knowledge and so much passion and
Yeah,
empathy and everything. Like, this guy is perfect, but he was really honest about the fact he was not a perfect man,
yeah,
and that he'd weathered quite a few storms, like
hmm,
self-inflicted and otherwise.
hmm,
And it was those it was those interactions and those stresses that had really made him the person that he was, and that
yeah,
helped me really lean into the fact that embracing those parts of yourself, does make you that wizened old tree, that resilient, super cool, amazing tree.
yeah,
So he taught me that, which is invaluable. Lean into who you are, lean into what your experiences are, and find the benefit in them.
yeah.
So yeah, what a truly great man. And the one thing that he said to me before he passed was that everybody's saying, like, "Oh, you can't go, because we're going to lose James Luce, and that's a loss that we can't sustain." And he said, "Well, it's your turn now,"
Yeah.
and that's kind of always really stuck with me. And he's like, when you think about it, in our industry, the people that are compassionate, kind teachers and are giving so much, a lot of them actually say, James was their inspiration. He's like, well, you guys, it's your turn now. I'm passing the torch.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and he mentioned that to me as well, that the season of life that I knew him at, like the stage of his growth in the forest was, didn't come without its challenges, but I never knew him at that time. I got a benefit from him after he earned his wisdom stripes, like and he would talk about it, that he came by them the hard way in some cases, right? And that's, again, that's where, right at the beginning we were talking about that, how wound can create strength in a tree, and how, a fallen tree or a tornado or some event that creates a lot of damage to a tree, or so it looks like, and then yet is what's responsible for it, forming into what it did, and I also got, like you said, about other people in our lives, like how they provide and share resources, like James, or our wives or our loved ones, like all of that. And that's where the analogy of the human forest is just so amazing, right? It like, and James' legacy, even though he's not a living tree in the forest. He's definitely, when a tree falls in the forest naturally, it slowly decomposes. That log can be there for hundreds of years before it's completely given back all the, and all that benefits from that. And I see James like that. He's very much like that, and still gets talked about a lot.
Oh, he's definitely my Obi-Wan. A lot of times, and not just like tree related stuff, but you know, there's that voice in my ear. Hey, just stop, just take a deep breath, think about this, and yeah, his metachlorian count is off the charts. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. What do you think, Tony? I mean, you knew the man, you knew him well as well, and we haven't had a. I don't think we've had a James sort of uh, chat like this yet on the podcast, but
No, he's come up a few times as he always would. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Dwayne. I didn't really meet James until later towards the end of his career and his lifespan, and just it was a big effect on me as a trainer, and just how he saw things, and that perspective that he gave, was very valuable to me. I wasn't in contact with him at the very end there because I didn't agree with a lot of his decisions near the end there, but they weren't my decisions to make, so that's fine. And I learned a lot. I learned that taught me about myself, through the choices that he decided to make, and it whenever you have a friend pass, it forces you to look at your own mortality, and I think that there's always value in that. And I think in James' case, it was a little bit more poignant just because of the circumstances that surrounded it, and the decisions that he made for his life, and the end of it, were just it was different for me. I didn't agree with a lot of it, but it wasn't mine to agree nor disagree with. It's fine. I don't decisions I wouldn't have made. So it was I learned a great deal from that through his example about myself. And I think that that's valuable, right? Because I don't think many of us don't think about those things until, well, it's there, right? You don't have time to ponder it when you're just waiting for the end, right? So I think that was valuable. And then, of course, as an arborist, his ripples go out and return constantly, just all the time. And it was a gift to know him as a professional and to spend time with him personally. It was just a wonderful thing to do. But there's a lot of arborists out there like that. Some of them James influenced, some of them not. I think, and it's interesting for me too, having been, being relatively close personal friend with Michael Taine, who of course, James and Michael Taine, that's that link there. I got to see another perspective of James through Michael's perspective, which is always interesting when you have the opportunity to see how someone is seen by somebody else, right? And those valuable lessons in that and of themselves. So yeah, it was just he'd have been a great podcast guest, right?
Yes, he would have been a guest. For
I
sure.
was thinking that too.
Absolutely.
But try not to equate my friends to being good podcast guests. I still do it.
It's a high form of flattery, I think, Tony.
Yeah, maybe that would be just it made me
Well,
think like people often use the word passion, and this was a bit of a discussion that James and I had once, probably around 2015, because we were roommates when we did them. Remember we went to Puerto Vallarta, Dwayne, with Arbor Canada.
Yeah.
And I came down, and James and I were bunking together there for that great trip. But I think we were talking about the root of the word passion is actually in Latin is actually passi, P-A-S-I, which means to suffer. So when you want to think about a passion, it's like sometimes you have to ask yourself in life, not what you want to do or why you want it, but what are you willing to suffer for? And you can use that term suffer for many things. How the two things you control in life, attitude and perseverance, right? What you think about things and how hard you're willing to work. Things that we consider ourselves to be passionate about, I think we are willing to work harder for, to suffer for, perhaps a little bit. And it's an interesting perspective that James and I kind of.
Well, and I think another word that pops into my mind around endurance. Did you say, or what was the word
Attitude
you
and perseverance.
perseverance is resilience as well.
Mm-hmm.
Resilience become a special word for me. I've thought of it lately in that, like, to be able to endure, and how much in enduring there's that creating of a change. Like you mentioned the diamonds, Tiger, like that. If you were feeling the heat and the pressure and you didn't like it, well, you're not going to have that change occur, right? And you got to be able to be, and passion doesn't come without some discomfort, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you willing to pay for it or endure and again, it's funny. I'm hung up these days on the negative and the positive and the words of it, because it's just the cycle of life. If you even think of birth, right? It's
That's right,
pretty,
yeah.
pretty quite the experience if we could remember it. Like, man, how you'd physically feel, your head crunched. And your first breath, what it would feel like, your lungs filling with air, and the sight and sound and the sensations, like air on your skin. Like, man, what a holy moly experience, right? And I don't know, I like to think that that's maybe what death's like too. It's just transferring into a new, James told me the last time we talked, and he said I'm about to ascend out of the canopy, Dwayne. I'm about to climb out the top. And he passed away the next day. So that really sticks out. That one really stuck out in my mind. Like he said, like he's climbing the tree of life, and he's going to climb right out the top.
I like that visual. That's killer. I like
Isn't
that.
that wild? Like, just like, wow. Like, I'll never, it's just, yeah, he's climbing right past the top. So there's sea at the top, but now there's like, man, I don't know where sea, maybe it's not the other side, it's just up there. Well, that's a nice, I always enjoy talking about James. That was nice.
Yeah, and you brought up Michael Taine as well. Like, what another
Yeah.
legend.
Yeah, he's been on the show. It was a good chat with him. If you haven't listened to his episode, you should check it out.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I mean, there's been multiple people in my career that I've really considered changing to being an EMT or being a
Uh-huh.
healthcare professional of some point. I suppose it's kind of where my interest for like emergency preparedness sort of comes from.
Right.
having the background as with a dad that's a doctor and has worked in multiple high stress situations, and the adrenaline piece of saving a life, or helping somebody that's injured is always kind of cold to me in a way. And Michael Tame was one of those people where I was like, maybe I should just drop everything in arboriculture right now, leave it on hold, and go and pursue that for a bit.
Right.
And I never actually really did, except for pursue it with inside sort of tree work. But he definitely made me think about it really heavily, and such a kind and caring man, and just like oozing with compassion as well. And yeah, I've only met him twice, and he left a pretty big impact on me. I really like that guy a lot. Not only that, he's got a great sense of humor too.
Yeah, yeah, he's yeah, and interesting enough, him and James were probably well, they were best friends for sure. They were very, very close.
It was actually through James that House got into arboriculture, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That connection there. So yeah, yeah, two wonderful people for sure that I've been that we've all been gifted to know. A lot of them in arboriculture. That's been one of the fun things about the podcast is I get to chat with all these fun people, right? Some
Yeah.
I know, some I don't, right?
Well, and get to have it where people can go listen to, or I guess we can even go listen to it. But there were some of it's archived. The stories are captured a little bit. I think what we do, Tiger, with our pithy points here, and
Yeah.
it would give us a little chance to, as we slowly wind down here, it's getting to that time. But you are you aware of the pithy points?
Yeah, you gave me a copy. Yeah.
Okay. So you know how many there are and that there's lots of them, and we usually just have our guests pick a number or two. Do you have a favorite?
I haven't touched the book in quite some time. I think, I mean, I don't remember picking a page and not being impressed by it. So
Well, just pick a number and we'll see where it takes us.
39.
Okay. 39. Oh, wow. This is hilarious. Tree pithy point number 39. There are no data to show that wound dressings prevent or stall decay. Isn't that funny? Like thinking about, we're talking about how that, going through hardship and how it changes us and how it actually, we appreciate what it's done for us later. Like to think that you put something on it to make it better, right? Like it doesn't do anything in the case of trees, right? We can paint the wound, but the wound's going to do what it's going to do, and it doesn't change what it's going to do, and it doesn't make it better or prevent. That's interesting.
Or quite often makes it worse, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
At best, it just covers it up for a bit,
yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Well, that neatly ties everything into a bow, doesn't it? That one.
Makes me think of self-medication, and the funny, he told me once that he meant the book to be read in reverse. And I don't think I made it up. We weren't drinking at the time or anything. But the first one, which is the last one, is ignorance of tree biology has been and still is the major cause of tree problems worldwide.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen. There's a I have to look them up. There's a woman on Instagram that's doing some research into cauterizing wounds. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, so actually applying flame to
Oh, yeah.
pruning cuts. And I'm really interested to see the data that comes out. But to sort of tie the analogy in, instead of like masking it, you have to go through this, baptism by fire to heal or seal over, as it were. is very, very interesting to me. But apparently, this woman's been climbing, and apologies, I cannot remember her name, is cutting and using a torch to actually cauterize these wounds and finding really, really good results.
Huh.
And I mean, there's like a huge relationship with fire and forest as it is, and this is quite topical right now in Canada for sure.
Right, right.
But biologically, it kind of makes sense. But wouldn't it be interesting in a couple of years from now, we get the data that comes back that you have to, carry around a torch with you in the tree as long with you along with your chainsaw.
Or have some sort of heated, I guess flame would be different than a heated. You had some sort of thing on the bar where the bar would get hot and you just press it on it or something.
Like a branding, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Then you can get your logo in it.
I could see this plan going terribly, terribly wrong. Just no, good science aside, I could see this going really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't think
yeah.
the tree was that dry.
I didn't know I was the one supposed to cauterize the dead wood. Oh, only the live wood. Ah. I'll just remove my spark arrestor. Same thing.
It's funny to me how the people still like the whole wound dressing thing, but it also the only time he uses, I've heard him use the other term, there are no data, is in regards to disinfecting tools, and that disease spreads through pruning tools. He uses the same terminology, and I don't know that it has happened still. Like apparently, no one's ever actually done a scientific study to show that you spread disease through pruning tools.
So this is actually a really interesting point because this has come up multiple times, and with individuals that do have some leg to stand on, and I my belief, not the facts or the
Right.
empirical data that I can give you, is if you're working on an orchard and if you're going from one tree to the next and there is disease that's present,
Yeah.
then cleaning your tools in between is good practice. But like if you're climbing, I don't know, an elm tree one day and then it's next week you're climbing another elm tree. I kind of, or even later that day, or later, a couple of days later, I
Yeah.
don't see the possibility that they could survive on the tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but again, I haven't seen data right in front of me that would suggest that's how you have to do it. It's all kind of like this old wives' tale business that comes out of
Yeah.
that, really, isn't it?
Which was the same with pruning paint. Which
Hmm.
it was the same thing, right? It was along the same lines, and there they actually did. I think there was actually, well, no, there's no data to show that it actually helps, right? Or that it prevents, right? But then there's anecdotal, and here we are, have been talking about ethereal things and feelings, and I think that's part of it too, right? If it feels right. I remember when I ran the tree service, I would always have pruning paint in the truck, and I remember one time in particular was a young student just graduated and was like, looking at the truck. I was like, "What? You have pruning paint? Don't you guys know?" And I said, "Well, pruning paint isn't for the trees." "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, it's for the customers."
Yeah.
Because sometimes you got a customer you just know is not going to be able to handle it, right? They got it. They've read it in a book. They actually have the book. It might be a 50, 60-year-old book. It might not even be that old. It's just got old data in it. And they're like, "You're supposed to paint them." It's like, okay, you know what? Because if it's thin enough, it doesn't really matter anyway. So we would but you can't buy anyway. Used to be able to buy tree coats still in the spray cans. They used to be a huge company. And I don't think you can get anywhere, but we would just do it the odd time. So I had it on hand, right, for the customer, not for the tree.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, talk about snake oil. Like that's
Yeah, yeah,
to build a whole business on selling snake oil. So,
yeah. Well, and I think people thought they were doing the right thing, right? And but interesting. I had to watch myself. I try to be a little more careful because I was teaching in, I think I was in Texas, and they said, well, when we were made some pruning cuts on this oak for climbing, and they were like, "Oh, we got to paint those," and I was like, "What? You don't, same kind. You don't mean to tell me you guys paint your cuts, do you?" And they said, "Well, yeah, we do, and we have to by state law." And I was like, "What?" And it's because of oak wilt. I guess it prevents the beetles aren't attracted to the fresh sap.
Yeah.
He said it's got nothing to do with the healing of the wound or anything. It's to keep the beetles from coming to it. And it's like, oh, and it was a state mandatory thing, and shown to be effective. So I was like, oh, I guess I need to always remember, you know, just because we don't do it here doesn't mean there might be a reason to use it. So obviously you must still be able to get it and get something of it or whatever, but or some form of it.
That brings up an interesting point though, is because to bring it back to biology and everything is to actually look at the life cycle of the insect or the pathogen. Like what is the most appropriate time of the year to be doing it,
Yep.
and schedule work for the right time of the year instead of having to incorporate a band-aid situation.
Yep. Yep.
So that one always boggles my mind, you know. And birch trees are a classic with
Yeah.
BB. It's like, why are you wanting to get this tree pruned at this time of the year? You're going to be attracting the insects.
Yeah.
Let's do it at this time of the year when they're going back into their burrows and
Yeah.
laying their eggs and everything. Like, let's try and kill you know, two life cycles at once. It's yeah, it that always boggles my mind. Just do it at the right time rather than incorporating a band-aid.
Yep. 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 And yeah, and this was that I know that if you have to prune an elm during the bad time of year, like when they'll paint those cuts too, but you're not supposed to prune them at all. But if you had to make a cut because a branch tore, or broke in a storm or something, then paint it. But I don't know. I don't know if the beetles can't smell the sap through the paint. Like, what is that? That doesn't smell right. We should check it out anyway. But I mean that's just one example of how much is so unknown. Like how like the fact that they can smell the
Hmm.
pruning cut, a beetle, like it's just whoa, what? Because I sure can't smell it. I don't think.
I don't know if it's an
Yeah.
elm. If it's an elm, you can smell it.
Yeah.
At least down here. Oh yeah, they stink.
Okay.
Sap coming out of an elm stinks terrible.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's true. But it's also the distress signal that the foliage puts off, isn't it, from the
Yeah.
sap?
Yeah.
So they can actually see that change in color. They're like, this tree is in
Yeah.
distress,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, it's pretty wild actually. But yeah, not a whole bunch of education. Like if I had a nickel for every time that I'd gone to a client's place and said, "Hey, this is not the right time to do this because of this reason," whether it be Bora or what. Oh, none of the other arborists had told me that, and that leads me to the point is that they're trying to get the money no matter what, which
Yeah.
is obviously the wrong thing to be doing, and you shouldn't be making money on the backs of people that are suffering. Uh, or is it that they just don't know
Right.
which one? Which one is it?
Well,
And
I'd say, what do you think?
well, I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt and like to think that the industry, um, as a whole, is more educated than it once was. But sometimes I'm like, do you just not know, not care, this, not want to find out? It's your craft. Your job as a craftsperson is to hone your skills and to learn everything you can about it. Like
Well,
as soon as you stop learning, you
yeah,
stop.
and the passion, right? Are you willing to suffer a little bit for it? I'm willing to do what's right rather than what's makes money, this sort of thing. And I think a lot of times it's like you were talking about your climb with James. Like they're not stopping to look at the big picture, right? It's about I got chipper payments, I got truck payments, I got I got my kid to take to soccer tonight. I got whatever, right? My wife and I are arguing, like all these other things that take you out of what you know you really are to take you out of what you're really being a part of, and you're not even seeing it, and then forgetting, where you came from.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the irony of it is, if you present yourself as a professional and you say no, you're going to get more of the clients and the trees that you want,
Yeah,
inevitably,
yeah,
because people understand that that's what you're about and what you stand for, what your
yeah,
ethics are. But yeah, I mean, that's my little pet peeve. So sometimes I'll send some messages or a call and say, hey, so you guys did that tree at that time. What was your thought process there? It's
yeah,
not often received very well.
yeah. But it's also that's one of those things too, where if you challenge someone and you're brave enough and willing to say, hey, why you could have, you should have, maybe something to consider, and whether they like it or not. In fact, I like to think the more angry they get, maybe at some point it's going to have an impact because it impacted them. If they get passionate about it, if they get excited about it, it meant something, and maybe that'll enough. Often that's the beginning of the change, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And you never know. 5 years later, 10 years later, you remember that time you called me and I got all pissed off. Son of a gun, I really had to think about that. And you were right. I just couldn't say it at the time. I couldn't see it. And that's often the way some of that stuff goes. And you think, at least it had been that way for me.
Well, I love being held accountable. I really do. Again, it's a chance to grow and it's a chance to be introspective and to, look at your shortcomings and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's not something that I do regularly. But sometimes it's like, God, I got to make this call.
yeah,
It's the right thing to do. Got to make this call. It's not about me. It's about the situation.
yeah.
So
What do you think, Tony? You ever feel the need to call something out just
I used to
because?
do it more often, not so much anymore. Because some battles, like you got to choose your battles in life, right? I only have so much energy to put into things, and having tried it, being more idealistic in my youth, sometimes it works out for the best. Most times it doesn't. So I don't worry about it too much anymore. Those types, I can see it all the time, especially in tree work, right? The amount of whether it be willful ignorance or just pure, they just don't know. Um, oftentimes me trying to fix it is not ultimately not going to fix it. I'm not saying that I will on occasion if for me it has to be the right circumstance, and that's very rarely in a public context. So if I run into somebody that I know that's doing work that I would find somewhat questionable, if I can get them in a private setting and ask them, I might be willing to do that. But I rarely call people out in public because, in my experience, it just doesn't work, right? But I don't know, not maybe I'll turn that corner and turn into the old curmudgeon arborist and just go around criticizing everybody willy nilly. My final phase of arboriculture.
Well, I think you're right. I think if, like my understanding of what Tiger's saying is doing a phone call or something to the guy,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's I think that does have a lot more. Doing
Oh
something
yeah,
on social or something. That's just like
I would do that.
those stuff.
Right. Yeah.
it's not the right way to handle it, and that's not
No,
going to be received well.
no,
But
no.
it does bring up a really good question, and I know we're at time here, but
Oh no.
there is a battle right now. There's like so much content that's being created that is less than,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And there's a call to all you good arbs out there. If you're doing the right thing, and you're using the right procedures, you're being safe and you're tree first, then produce content, please.
Right. Yeah, that's it's yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of us that are looking and watching and shaking our heads, but not, we're not. I know there's anything we should do about it, but we're not also sharing another view, right?
Yeah, just the view that's being presented currently is one of cowboy
Yeah.
actions and disregard for safety, disregard for how those messages are going to be received and emulated, and the safety of others, and how the industry progresses as a whole. There's so many great operators out there, like doing phenomenal work. We need to see more of what you do.
Yeah.
I tell people when it comes to social media and tree work, is like just do never use social media as your first point of reference, right? Like way back when I was going to school, you did research paper, you needed 3 independent verifiable sources, right? And I'm not saying there's plenty of great stuff on YouTube, on social media, and I'm with you, Tiger. I hope there's more. I hope people put out more of the good stuff. But don't, even good or bad, don't use it as the first point of reference, right? Use it as a second point or a third point, but learn it from a more verifiable source, and then use this because it's so easy to, because YouTube doesn't care if it's, and I use YouTube, social media doesn't care if it's good or bad. There's no judge, right? There's nobody that curates it, but it's probably not going into a textbook unless it's been peer reviewed, right? There is no peer review for social media, and maybe that's its blessing, and it's also its curse. So just don't use it as a first point of reference. Oh, it must be good. I saw it on Instagram. Like, no, 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 no. I went to a training course and I saw Tiger teach me this, and then I checked it out on Instagram and I got, oh yeah, or I saw maybe I could do it this way, right? And I could enhance what Tiger taught me, So use it that way. Not, it's a tool. It's not, the end all and be all. It's not a crystal ball, right?
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have said that better myself.
Dr. Google. It's
I mean, it's like I said, there's so much fantastic stuff on there, but then there's so much stuff that's just like, what? Like, that's like, I don't do social media anymore because like especially Instagram, because as an arborist, I go in there and I'm trying not to be a professional. I'm just trying to keep up with my buddies' kids. But all this stuff is popping up and I'm getting angry. I'm like, I don't have this much time in life to be angry about this. So I stopped it, right? And it was just dumb stuff. And but I just,
well, and I think
but it's a wonderful tool, right? Because I think how many young people have gotten introduced to what I know about arboriculture or how I see arboriculture that never would have done it. Right, so just have to use it for what it is. It's not a first point of reference. It's not in the Encyclopedia Britannica of 2020s.
I think of things like, words come to mind when we're talking about this stuff is acceptance and trust. And what I mean by that is that we can't control everything, and we don't understand necessarily why even these bad messages, or like we call them, and clearly unsafe acts being glorified, if you will. It maybe there's more of a lesson in there that might maybe and just kind of accepting that this is the stage things are in, and they're there maybe for whatever reason they're there, and I don't really like it, I don't understand it, but accepting it and being willing to let it happen, and not sure what the outcome's going to be, but and not shy away from my view of it either, but just also it's like, hey, it is what it is, and yeah, I don't know. It's
yeah. No, I think you're right.
like you get excited, right? Like rather than get upset, it's like, that's kind of interesting and weird. I wouldn't recommend that, but hey, whatever.
I think what I've had to teach myself is just because there's a really poor technique on social media, it's not the end of the world, right? And I have to trust that a lot of people aren't going to do the dumb thing and try it. Some will, but won't. And what gets me as a professional And I've described this to some people that produce some content in person. I've talked with them that I don't really approve of. It's like, I don't care what you do with your buddies on the weekend in your backyard in your free time. I really don't care. What bothers me is when you produce this and then put it out as being a professional within this industry. And it's not to basic standard, mediocre, basic industry standard. What you and your buddies do, drinking a beer on Saturday, I don't care. I don't care if you film it. I don't care if you put it up. None of my business. But when you present yourself as an industry professional, the game changes. And I would like to think that maybe I've changed some people's judgment on those things. I hope so. Anyway, right? So that was always my biggest gripe. Like, if you're not going to do basic industry practice, don't represent the industry, right?
Well, and there's probably a lot of people like us that feel the same way. That just, may not, you know, they don't comment, they don't get involved, they just shake their heads like we are here. And there may be a lot more of them than we realize.
Well, the problem is now with all these search engine optimizing and all of that sort of stuff is some of these people get major authority, so
Yes.
they're actually being pointed to, and like it or not, that's how people consume information now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if Google, ChatGPT, Claude is all pointing towards some of these individuals as to having authority, why is it that if I need to fix my faucet in my bathroom, I can get a YouTube and I can do that and I can fix it? Why wouldn't it not be the same for tree work? I'm a budding young arborist. How do I do this or whatever?
Yeah.
And those domains are pointing authority directly at those people.
Yeah.
So my tact at this point, after my recent purchase of some Oakley meta glasses,
Nice.
is to join the war and start to produce some good content.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and you make a really good point, and that is it. Algorithms and like followers creates expertise and is perceived as good, and it's just popularity. Popularity is not the same as professionalism, and hopefully they sometimes are the same, but they're often not.
Hmm. And done in the right way too, I feel, like it's not an opportunity to pump your own tires. It's an opportunity to teach, and to tie it back to James, it was never about James.
No.
It was always about you, the consumer of the information, and the student, and changing the tone on that one. I'm not the world's greatest arborist. You know, I'm an arborist that enjoys what I do.
Yeah.
Let me share with you something that I know, and you can go forth and get other references, like Tony says. Go and talk to other people, like expand your mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than like listen to me. I'm the best.
And that's the word that comes to mind there is humility, right? And being able to practice humility. Yeah.
100%.
I always like the way Neil deGrasse Tyson put it. One of the most powerful things you can do is to launch another learner into this world.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, when you start to, if you're producing content and that's your intent, you'll succeed, right? I would have no problem with it. But it is what it is. And I'm with Dwayne, maybe I think we have to accept it because you're right, Tiger. It's the way people are consuming information. And it's a powerful, powerful way to consume information, which is great if it's good information, is terrible if it's bad information. But understanding that, and I thought for a while I would be with you and I'd join the war, but in my case, I spend a lot of time creating content like that, but it's not for public consumption. I use it for the training courses and the other things I do. And I don't have time to produce more, right? Like, so that was my decision. Like, I'm creating stuff like this, but I'm using it for different an outlet, and I just don't only so much time and energy in a day.
I wonder if when the printing press started, when it came about and people were able to read books and write. Just because a guy got it printed, now he's an expert.
Well, they might have been close because back then it was really hard and expensive to get shit printed. You better know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well,
But
a concept that we're all very familiar with is seeding, right? Is seeding for more education and for what's the next thing. Maybe that's the real special sauce, is to have the content that's seeding into other than what it was before, which is like you go to school, you learn how to do the thing, you get your passing grades, then you maybe refer to some texts or some other stuff. Now it's like the other way around. So like the content is here and like, hey, you need to go get education and go backwards.
yeah.
Maybe it's like reverse seeding in a way, which is what's actually required.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see what you mean. Absolutely. And, the times they are a changing.
This is true. The only, what is it? The only constant is change. So,
Correct. Yeah. An oxymoron that I think is probably most apropos. Is that an oxymoron? Is that right, Tony?
would
I
have to
guess
look at
it's
an
a dichotomy. An oxymoron is
What
like
dichotomy?
military intelligence. You can't have the two words in the same sentence.
Right.
So I guess it is in. No, I don't know. It's definitely a dichotomy, a juxtaposition, shall we say?
Yeah, juxtaposition makes sense. Yeah. Well, Tiger, it's always amazing to me. We get going along these, and we don't actually have a timeline, Tiger, but they do seem to be getting longer, Tony, lately.
Yeah, that's probably a function of you and me, Dwayne. Not to do with our wonderful guests.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I guess we have been. Well, you got going there, Tony. You're off to quite quiet, but you had a lot to say about the internet stuff. There, it was good.
I always have a lot to say about internet stuff.
Thanks for bringing it up, Tiger. And I'm sure there's people listening, our guests, that are going to agree and that feel very similarly. Well, thank you, Tiger, for taking time and visiting with us. It's been really good.
It was great to catch up.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate being invited on, and I really enjoyed myself.